Hey guys, welcome back to the Promised Land podcast with me, Scott Saunders, talking all things Manchester United. I hope you had a fantastic weekend. I certainly did try to chill out. The news was a little bit dry, wasn't it? Let's hope United took a little bit of a breather, or at least tried, to keep nailing down these much needed transfers that need to come in. We'll see what happens, but there's certainly some developments that have come out around Monday afternoon. There's been talk all weekend actually about Bryan and Mbeumo, Thomas Frank going to Tottenham and this kind of thing, and oh no, are United going to get their deal hijacked? This kind of thing. I'll be talking about that on this episode of the podcast, and also I will be talking about Viktor Gyökeres again. I don't want to be talking about Viktor Gyökeres like every single day, but at the same time, I think this is a pretty big deal if United are going to go ahead and do it. So I think certainly after what Fabrizio Romano has just said, maybe it's worth more talk. Manchester United, they're not messing around. But whatever you say, you can criticize United, you can criticize them for what they've done over the last year, for the last 5 years, and yes, certainly deserve a lot of criticism. But what I've been saying for a while is give this new regime a chance to make an impression. Give this new regime a chance to settle in. Give this new regime a chance to work, identify a manager, bring him in and work alongside him. It seems like now that things are starting to align. They know exactly what they want to do in the transfer market. And look, one player's in through the door. Bryan and Mbeumo should, hopefully, isn't too far away as well. And it seems like Manchester United are actually going for a third player. Already, they need more as well. But even the players or the targets that they're looking at, the positions that they're looking to strengthen, they seem to be the right ones as well. So I'll be talking about that a little bit on this show as well today. Please like the video if you're watching on YouTube. This is a live stream. Hello, Jonathan Ball. Welcome back, mate. Thanks for joining. Thanks for getting in the comment section as well. And if you're new here, please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. Please get in the comment section as well. Let me know what you think of what United are doing. Also, subscribe to the Promised Land podcast on Spotify and Apple. I'm doing effectively daily pods. I don't think they'll be daily this week because I am going away this week, but I'll be back probably right through from Monday next week, probably most days, because the transfer window's open. United doing a hell of a lot of business by the looks of it, and they need to do it as well. But yes, subscribe to the audio platform as well on Apple and Spotify if you've not done so already. This YouTube channel is so new that I can't even put hyperlinks to the channel or to those podcasts in the description, which is quite annoying. But hey, get in the comment section as well. I'll run through some comments as we go through the show, and I'll be talking about Gyokeres, like I say, Bryan and Mbeumo. United released their retain list as well today, and maybe talking about that a little bit too. Jonathan Ball says, will we actually see a Cunha, Gyokeres and Mbeumo forward line? Because that hits different already. The way that it's looking, United are certainly cracking on with things. Manpreet, hello, mate. Hey, Scott, still concerned that there's no update on any outgoings. To be honest, I think you might just have to strap in a little bit with those and think, even like Garnacho's been linked with a few clubs over the last few days, and I haven't even thought to put that on the list. So maybe I'll talk about Garnacho on this show as well. I'm just writing that in my notes because I think that's probably one of the easiest deals that United can do. How quick Garnacho will want to get out and try something new, I don't know. But the likes of Chelsea and Arsenal have been linked with him by a really strong Argentinian journalist over the last 24 hours or so. So you never know. If he wants to stay in the Premier League, how would you feel about that? How would you feel about that if he joined Chelsea or Arsenal? Is the money more important, or do you want to go into that like every single match he plays against United worried that he's going to score against them? I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, plenty to talk about. Get in the comment section. King Eric is here as well. I was worried about sales taking all summer, but the way that we're acting, I'm starting to hope that we'll get some out early. I can definitely see Rashford transfer dragging on, but hopefully we can get some players sold soon. That font is massive, by the way, on the screen. So look, I think I've tailed off a little bit there to what I was saying. I think some of these players, given they're on such massive money, you might just have to... They're difficult players to shift. They really are. I think Garnacho is probably the simplest one. Anthony might be quite simple as well, given there's a lot of clubs interested in him and his wages aren't too high. But the likes of Rashford and Jadon Sancho, I could see those ones dragging on for a good while through this summer. But you look, I think it's really important that United do siphon those players off and make sure that they get them out. If pre-season has started by that point and they're still there, I'm not sure how they go about it. Is it a kind of exclusion scenario from those players? Maybe it might have to be, but yeah, United are really going to have to work hard on sales, because also they're going to need to raise some money in order to buy the rest of the players that we know that they need to buy. Goalkeeper, I think, is massive. I'll be doing maybe more of a pre-recorded show this week on the goalkeeping situation, so keep an eye out for that. Maybe on this channel or on the other channel I've just migrated from. I don't know, because I still need the people who are on that old channel to migrate over here and subscribe to this channel. Also, I should probably do a new version of a keep sell. I did one in like April or something like that, but I think a lot has changed. United aren't in Europe now, so I think maybe there's some different answers to be talking about there. But subscribe to the channel, like I say, if you've not done so already, and keep your comments coming in. I will come to them in periods throughout the show. But let's talk about Viktor Gyokeres to start with, because we've had a couple of updates today. So, look, I wasn't really expecting United to go and make strides forward with a player like Viktor Gyokeres simply because of the financial part. Maybe the fact that United try and get this Mbeumo deal done next, and we know United's cash position isn't the best, right? So we know that United are having to sell players in order to top up that balance to go and pay for other players. So that's basically what we're looking at. Maybe there's United are nearly there with Mbeumo from what all the signs are. I'll talk about the speculation around him and Tottenham a little bit later, but I think it's and we saw this with the Cunha deal, right? It's really important that United do try and pay as little down at the start as possible, the way that it's looking, and at least until they can start selling players, at least until they sell players, because they're working with such a limited cash balance at the moment, and they're working against this timeline where I think at the start of July, United's players come back for pre-season and the start of pre-season, and Ruben Amorim is going to need as many new players in for that point as possible, as early as possible in pre-season. With all the tactical drills, maybe Gyokeres, look, if United end up getting Gyokeres, he has familiarity with the system, but he's going to need to learn understandings with the players who are around him, this kind of thing. So we'll wait and see. But it is super important for me that, and maybe this is a reason for the delay on Mbeumo. I am speculating on that completely, but we know that United want to pay down as little as possible. We know that Brentford will probably want as much money up front as possible, and that's probably what it's about, I would imagine. But the fact is, and this has come in from a few different places. So this is what Sky Sports said around 2.5 hours ago or so. Richard Waterman says, made a live one. I'm really not sure about Gyokeres. I don't know who else to get who's actually available. Maybe I'll talk about that in a little bit as well. But hello, mate. Thanks for joining. We have this Sky story from earlier. Man United make initial approach to Sporting for Gyokeres through intermediaries. United are exploring the conditions of a potential deal. Ruben Amorim is a big admirer and obviously worked with him before. United are in the market for a striker regardless of Rasmus Højlund's future. And he did an interview the other day saying he was contracted until 2030, etc., etc. But look, get your comments in, keep them coming. And I think this from Jonathan Ball here is kind of what has been the hold-up point. I think Gyokeres would want European football and especially the Premier League. I think that's what's been the hold-up, and that's why I've always thought that Arsenal were maybe in the box seat in order to go and make this player signing if they so wanted him. But I think over the weekend especially, and over the last few days, and I did do, the last episode I did was about this as well. It seems like Arsenal have made their mind up, or are at least pursuing the younger option in Benjamin Sesko here. There's maybe nothing to say that they won't pivot back if this deal doesn't work out, and then maybe they're priced out of it. Maybe they go back and pull the trigger on this Gyokeres deal, and United are completely screwed, and they have to look somewhere else. But I think and Romano has also just said this as well, I think with the knowledge that Arsenal have been going down that route with Benjamin Sesko, maybe it's opened the door for a lot of clubs to stick their neck in there and just check. And I think we've had confirmation of that actually happening. So United are looking and they are working in order to try and get Viktor Gyokeres in through the door, even though their hands are kind of tied at the moment financially. Exploring the conditions of a potential deal, that's quite ambiguous. But then we also had, like, in the last hour or so, Fabrizio Romano's latest update on it. So he went, I think he just did a video on his channel and said the line, with Champions League, I'm 99% convinced Manchester United would have closed this deal quickly. The only limit, I'm paraphrasing with this, the only limit is financial. So that really gives you an inkling into the fact that United and Amorim have maybe decided. Remember when Amorim had said, like, it was sometime around the Europa League final, he'd said that we have one plan for Champions League football, we have another plan for without Champions League football. Maybe United are looking at trying to find ways around it to trigger the plan they initially had in the first place. But maybe Viktor Gyokeres featured in these plans all along, because it is, United are looking for as close to a guarantee of goals as they can possibly get, because they've not had that through a centre forward probably since they had Ronaldo, obviously, a few years ago now, but then there were obviously issues with his tactical fit in the team under a couple of different managers, 3 different managers, actually, if I remember rightly, and he eventually got lofted out. But United need that guarantee of goals, and I think if they do end up, Cunha and Mbeumo are Premier League proven players, if they can add those goals in and add a centre forward as well, who, and I maybe will address this, it was just said just now, I did actually bring up a comment on the screen. I can't remember who said it, but there are some concerns about Viktor Gyokeres. I share those to a degree, but I think there are justifiable factors. Now, the price all along for Gyokeres has been 65 million euros, I believe, which is around 55 million pounds, which is actually cheaper than the 2 deals that they're looking to do at the moment. I don't know how this is going to break down. Maybe United will have to ramp this up as they get that kind of money available to them to go and make this deal happen. But I think it's a massive outlay for a striker, but it's also for a player of the level of Gyokeres, with the amount of goals he's been scoring and what it would take to go and sign a striker as equivalent to him in terms of numbers. And I'm talking wages and transfer fee here. I think it is a risk that is worth taking, just simply because of the familiarity the coach has with Viktor Gyokeres, Gyokeres has with the coach, and the familiarity that Gyokeres has with English football as well. Now, I keep saying this. Yes, he scores a lot of penalties, but you do see some. I watched a compilation the other day, right? Because this is what you're supposed to do now, because nobody has any time to watch like 90 minutes of Coventry every single week if they don't support Coventry, But when he was at Coventry, the kind of goals that he was scoring in the Championship, he can do it in English football. It's a big step up from Championship to Premier League, obviously, but there's other players who've done it. And the physicality of the guy, he looks strong, quite quick, knows the Amorim system, isn't massively expensive in context to what other strikers would cost nowadays. There's obviously big potential risks with the deal if it doesn't work out. But I think what United are looking to do here, and what United need to do, is try and find a player who balances that level of cost with a surefire guarantee as you can possibly find. Yes, there's plenty of Viktor Gyokeres, Victor Osimhen. There's too many Victors. Victor Osimhen has turned down Al Hilal over the last few days, and I don't know whether that is going to be something that rumbles on over. Ben McManus just says, haha, I just watched that compilation as well. Good variety of goals. I was impressed. Yeah, I don't know. It must have just come up on my YouTube recommendations unless Coventry had uploaded it. Sporting have actually done one as well over the last few days about all the goals that he scored for them last season. Jonathan Ball there says, it feels like Liam Dilap's rejection is a massive bonus for us. And look, I think you can see the merit in what Liam Dilap would have been, and you can see why United had put him to the top of the line, because you do get, look, he's much more of a risk to take, but he is 30 million quid, and if it goes well for him at Chelsea, this is a player who will instantly become, within 1 year, the value of a 60 million pound striker, if not more, because he's English, because he plays for Chelsea, if it goes well. But I don't think United are really in the position to we've seen it, and the criticism of Rasmus Højlund really, which sometimes I think gets a little bit out of line. I understand that people have their like they look at the style of play that he has, they look at the first touch, and they look at look, he's completely shot of confidence at the moment as well, even though he's talking up in the media that he's ready to stay and this kind of thing until 2030, even though he's contracted until 2028 with an option for a further year. Højlund has been hung out to dry. Højlund has not had the right conditions in order to succeed at Manchester United, because he's been the only guy with the responsibility of scoring the goals. And that's a lot to carry for a player of that age, especially when you come from Atalanta for a massive fee as well. I do think Rasmus Højlund will go on to become a really good footballer somewhere else and score a lot of goals, but it's just not a position that United can take that kind of risk in anymore. Maybe he will play better with the two strikers or the two forwards behind him, but you can't take that risk, and United simply need as close to a guarantee as possible. And I think Dilap was never going to be that guarantee. He was an opportunity. I understand why United went for it, but I think as it's been said there by Jonathan, it feels like Liam Delap's rejection is a massive bonus for us. I was kind of hoping as well that it would go this way. And Gyokeres is obviously, look, he's 27 years old, just turned 27, desperate for that chance. I think he wants to play in the Premier League. You would understand if Arsenal were his first choice. Of course you would, because Arsenal are nearly there in terms of, or are there in terms of challenging for Premier League titles. But I think people do forget this. Like, he has gone to Coventry and he has nailed it for Coventry to the point, and scored a lot of goals for Coventry, to the point that move to Sporting came about in the first place. The likes of Rasmus Højlund could go through that kind of maturing process over the next few years themselves. And in a few years' time, United would be looking at Højlund when he's banging in goals in different leagues and think, wow, what a missed opportunity. But I think it's just a case of the timing's been off. United's profiling has been off. Their team structuring has been off, and their profiling has been off. And we've known that's been the case for a long time. Gyokeres, for me, is as close to... How many sure things are there for the price of 55 million quid? You could maybe get Osimhen for a lower fee, but I don't know what his motivations are. Are they wages? Does he want, you see the Galatasaray package that I think they're offering him in order to stay? I think they're getting sponsors involved, according to some reports. That I don't think I think United need to be responsible. And I think Gyokeres, in terms of the price, in terms of the fit with the coach, in terms of the proof in English football, the proof in the Champions League, and the wage all coming together, because I don't expect he won't go to United's highest earner, for example. I think he could probably has a good chance of fitting in that wage bracket of 150 to 200, which is probably where you need him to be. And I think, despite reports to the contrary, I think that's probably where Bryan and Mbeumo will end up sitting as well. I think it's the smartest one to go for. And I think United now, especially after what Fabrizio Romano has said here, just repeat the line. He said this on a video earlier. With Champions League, I'm 99% convinced Manchester United would have closed this quickly. Tells you really that he was featuring in the planning, and the only thing that was limiting them was probably financial, because it seems like the desire was there. It seems like the desire was there. Maybe you can read into what Amarim's been saying and suggest that with Champions League, we maybe had the money to get Gyokeres. Without the money, maybe we go for the Dilap option. Look, I'm speculating completely, but I think, there are no... Yeah, Richard Waterman here says, where are the surefire bets? There's not many. There really isn't many. Grace Sheridan says, is anyone else already sick of the transfer window? Yeah, I just want the summer off. Honestly, yes. I'm so sick of it already. If you look at the time, I don't know whether I think a few people who watched these said on Twitter the other day, or said in the chat the other day, they don't follow... they don't have X accounts. They close them down. They don't use Twitter at all, simply because of how toxic a place has just become. But I think through the weekend, the amount of people that are trying to act like, they're breaking news stories, and some are just doing it for purposes of misinformation. It drives you mad. It absolutely does drive you mad. And look, we are 9 days into the transfer window. Luckily, there's a transfer. Luckily, there's a transfer deadline tomorrow, so maybe we get 6 days off of it. We'll see if United can do Mbeumo by that point. But yeah, get your comments in. Jonathan again says, Tammy Abraham wants back to Britain. I really like the Porto striker Samu as well. That gave us a torrid time. I do too, but again, I think he falls into that, like, I don't think United are in that position really at the moment to go and sign a player like that simply because he's untried in the Premier League. And I know Gyokeres is untried in the Premier League as well, but you need as close to a guarantee, I think, as you can possibly get. And like I say, taking in price, taking in expected wages, taking in goal contributions, taking in understanding with the manager and to the tactical approach, I think that Gyokeres is probably the right fit for Manchester United in the transfer window. I think if you're Arsenal, you can make this decision between a Gyokeres and a Sesko. Arsenal get plenty of goals already. You know that they need to add more, but at the same time, they have a really experienced unit there that have grown up together that are at that point now. Maybe they can take a chance, pay a little more, and get a younger striker like Benjamin Sesko, who has massive potential. I don't think United are in that position where they can do that. So I think it's encouraging. You know, I think United are trying their best to find ways around their limited situation. They will have to sell at some point. Can you go and get that Gyokeres deal over the line this month, or get it close to being done this month? You know, and just so he can be in for pre-season and work with understanding the players behind the striker and work with trying to, you know, hit the ground running at the start of the season. I say this on most podcasts, but at the same time, like, remember, like, people are really down on last season, and understandably, you absolutely should be. But this, if you turn the page and you look forward, Manchester United are one of, well, there's 9 teams in European football next season. United don't have a lot to focus on but the Premier League. Obviously, you want to win the cups and this kind of thing, but they can put all their eggs, Grace Sheridan saying title charge next season. You just whisper it. You don't want to say it. Don't want to say it out loud, but there's a chance that United could surprise some people next season. I think there's a chance United could surprise some people. That is dependent on raising the physical level of the team so they can compete every week in the Premier League. And that is dependent on making sure that you add goals to the team. Ben McManus says, remember to like the video. Yes, please remember to like the video. If you're here, if you're new, thanks for joining. Please like the video because this channel needs all the help it can get. Please comment as well afterwards and let me know whether you think United will end up signing Viktor Gyokeres or not. Jonathan again says, I see that as the only negative. We could possibly be starting with a completely different front three, which will obviously take time to embed with each other. Of course, I think United need to make sure that they address that as quickly as possible. Maybe that is a reason for United trying to go in addressing those 3 striking positions like straight off. Because I think as much as I would like to see a new midfielder, as much as I think United really need to strengthen there, as much as you'd think United need a new goalkeeper and this kind of thing, they can probably wait a little longer. Look, goals win games at the end of the day. United don't score enough goals. So that is, you know, something you need to address straight away. Grace says, thoughts on Bruno playing the pivot? I did speak about this the other day. I have some concerns. I think Bruno has shown that he is able to mature. I think that the way that he has changed in his attitude and the way that he does things under Ruben Amorim specifically, I think he's been a good captain for United for a few years now, but I think he seems to me like the guy that is Ruben Amorim's voice, like that's on the pitch, exactly what you need a captain to be. And I think I have some concerns because I think his passing range is really good, but I think his short passing game, sometimes I think he gets a little bit excited and he doesn't really have that. You look at other midfielders out there who control the pace of games and this kind of thing. Yeah, I don't think he's got that really in his locker at the moment, but I think he can potentially become that. He needs to change his game, though. He needs to show that extra maturity. He needs to maybe go against his instincts a little bit and trust what the coach is telling him, because like Ruben Amorim has said publicly he wants him to stay, and now United signings that they're making indicate really that, you know, that Bruno is going to be in the pivot. He's going to play alongside someone else. I think United definitely need to sign some legs to go alongside him. There's been suggestions of João Palhinha over the last few days, and I like that move, but at the same time, then I think we'll probably be looking at it and thinking, where are the ball players? So I don't know. I think United need to work with Bruno to make sure that he is playing the game right. But I think if Ruben Amorim trusts that he can do it, then I think that's enough for me at this point. But United definitely need to upgrade in their midfield. I think at some point, I think to go alongside Bruno to start with, can you work on Kobbie in becoming the long-term successor? Do you think we'll eventually sell Bruno or leaves on free? Honestly, I think this Saudi conversation could come back around next year. I do. I think he did say it's been suggested in certain places he didn't want to go anywhere or to Saudi before the World Cup was over. So maybe this comes back in a year's time. I don't know. But yes, I'll move on in a second to Bryan and Mbeumo and the latest there. Also a little bit about maybe Garnacho and the retained list as well. But yeah, please like the video if you've not done so already. And subscribe to the channel if you've not done so already as well. Also, find the Promised Land podcast in audio format on Apple and Spotify if you've not done so already, and get your comments in. I'm seeing them come up on the screen and doing my best. Maybe I'll come towards them at the end of the show as well to address anything that's outstanding. Anyway, right. Thomas Frank's going to Tottenham. Cue everybody losing their mind about, oh no, is Bryan and Mbeumo going to go with his old coach to the team that beat United in the Europa League final that are playing in the Champions League next season? They certainly seem to want a player in that position. Thomas Frank has that connection with him. He's made him as a player. And obviously there's dots you can connect there, but I would really not worry about this at all to start with. I think it's, look, I've touched on this a little bit, and this all this podcast is just me speculating and suggesting. I'm trying to come from it of a never too high, never too low level. If something does change fundamentally that we need to react to that changes the course of this deal, then potentially I'll maybe address it then. But like, come on. Yes, exactly. Is that the Frank that Spurs just agreed to? Yeah, exactly. He wants to leave. And I think all of the indicators, ever since, I think it was last Monday, wasn't it? Ever since David Ornstein put that tweet out last week saying that Bryan and Mbeumo had chosen to join Manchester United, telling other suitors, Tottenham, Arsenal, Newcastle, I only want Manchester United. That's an indicator to me that no matter the circumstances, he only wants Manchester United. Now, we don't know the reasons for it. I'm sure we'll hear from him when he joins, if he does join. But there's a hold up here, obviously, and I think the fact that transfer news moves so quickly, especially if you use social media, the fact that it moves so quickly and you're just scrolling for updates after updates, and then there's an update that comes in from one place, and then it's the same update that comes in from another place, and then an aggregator does the same update and then adds another thing on top of that from another person. It just makes you think that moves have to progress every 5 seconds, every 5 minutes, and that's just simply not how it works. I wouldn't worry too much. I think what the hold up on Mbeumo is for me, I think, is just making sure that United are trying to, like I say, I think they're trying to find a way that they limit the amount of money that they're putting out to start with. Obviously, the value of the deal as well on the whole is going to be really important to them and important to what they commit in future years and has real implications. I think Brentford set their price of around, like, what? They want Mateus Cunha money, right? So I think this is just a negotiation. I wouldn't be too worried about this. The Thomas Frank thing isn't even done yet. If something changes, then something changes. But I don't doubt really that if Bryan Mbeumo is picking which club he wants to join, maybe there's a reason to suggest that he likes working with Thomas Frank. He knows he can get the best of him. But at the same time, like, what are Tottenham doing with that appointment? Are they shooting for the stars? Like, what's the ambition of Tottenham as a football club? You know, I don't think you can go and say that they want to win titles like Manchester United do. I know Manchester United are miles off, but the aspiration is there. The aspiration has been publicly set. You know what Tottenham are as a football club, and that's why I think most players will always aspire to play for Manchester United over Tottenham, or one of the reasons anyway. Grace again says, do you think there'll be fluidity between Mbeumo and Ahmad, or will Mbeumo be told to stay more central? I would be surprised really if obviously I think Mbeumo has the work rate and that kind of thing to actually recover and like switch positions, this kind of thing. But I think what United will be working on over the course of the summer will be getting that width, getting those 5 attackers, getting the 2 wing backs or wingers especially as far forward as you can possibly get, and stretching the width of the pitch and making sure that United maintain attacks. I think Mbeumo is really good at finding spaces, dribbling between spaces, like bouncing players off and this kind of thing, and working opportunities for himself or for other players. So I think United, to me, I think they have a specific plan. They're getting the profiles of the players right as well. You can really understand why Mbeumo. You can understand why Cunha. Gyokeres obviously was Amorim's old striker, so you see the merits there. You see why he's going for him. And I think all of these players that they are looking at signing are real box ticks for the credentials that each player in each position needs. Jonathan says, Brentford rumoured to want McKenna. That honestly, when I saw that the other day, I thought that was I can't believe I didn't think of it before. That just seems to make the most sense possible to me. I think it would be a really, really good continuity thing for them. I think McKenna is a really good coach who I felt he should have taken a job last year. Maybe the shine's been taken off him a little bit after Ipswich's relegation, but he's still a really good coach, I think. Was working with players that, weren't good enough for the league, and most championship teams that come up are not good enough to stay in the league longer than a year at the moment. So, just to cycle back to Mbeumo, I wouldn't worry at this moment in time about anything changing. There's holdups in the deal, but I think everybody expects these deals to move really fast all the time. It's just not the case. And there is plenty of time left. I know there's a transfer window closure on the 10th, which is tomorrow. Maybe we'll see United get near to the end by that point. But even if they strike a deal with Brentford, like in the next 24 hours or over the course of the week, and like it moves into next week or whatever, ultimately, what difference does it make? It doesn't make any difference, because Mbeumo is not going to be at Manchester United training and working with the coaches and working with Amorim and working with the players around him until United come back for pre-season, which is next month, and that's still 3 weeks away or whatever. Players will need holidays, this kind of thing. But I wouldn't worry too much. I think this will be, until we hear something different, until we hear something concrete, I think this is United's deal to get done. It's just about the structure of the deal. It's about the amount that United will be paying down, all of that kind of stuff. But get your comments in, keep them coming, and I will try my very best to get through them. We do have, we had some news today from Manchester United on their retained list. Clubs obviously have to release retained lists at the end of every season. Among the names on it, Christian Eriksen, Johnny Evans, and Victor Lindelof, a few youth players as well. And Tom Heaton is in discussions over a new contract. Nothing we didn't already know, but just a reminder here that there, I'm plucking this number off the top of my head. Christian Eriksen, £150,000 a week. Victor Lindelof, £120,000 a week. Johnny Evans, I can't remember exactly, but that there is around about 300k a week, I would say. 350k a week, which is just off. Is Fredrickson out of contract, says Grace there. I don't think he's been listed. I think he was on the... Oh, I don't know. No, he's there. He's on the retained list. He's under contract still. Anyway, look, I just a reminder there that the kind of wage space that United are opening up, they need to cut that down. And obviously the wages that they've let go is equivalent to a Marcus Rashford kind of wage. So it's really important that United go and make sure that they trim that wage bill down. But think of the space and the amount of wiggle room that they're going to be creating through player offloads and through player sales, this kind of thing. It's going to be really important that United shrink that squad down and get I hate referring to them as deadwood, but a lot of these players are. And United need to take a lean squad forward and make sure that they moving forward with the right players, with the right attitudes. And any players that are not part of the plan, shift them off to the side, try and get them out, because ultimately it will save them a hell of a lot of money and allow them to reinvest as well. Richard says, what are you going to do during the transfer window break, Scott? Do you mean like this 6 days coming? Because I'm going to Greece on Wednesday for a wedding, and I'll be back next week then. I think the transfer window's back open. If you're talking about what I'm doing on the podcast, then probably a lot of this kind of thing, a lot of these lives, a lot of these talking about transfers. I think it'll be a super busy summer for Manchester United as well, and I'm trying to get better at talking to a live camera and talking to you guys in the chat as well. I'm trying to do that, trying to grow this channel, and we'll see how it goes. I think there's plenty of reasons to be positive about what United are doing for me, and especially after that, I touched on it last week, but the financial results last week, you can't forgive the way that they have gone about doing all of the cuts that they've done. But you see the reasons why they've been doing it. You see when the numbers come out like that, when you see the amount, I think United turned a profit for the quarter of a 0.7 million or something like that. Like that there from a club that was absolutely hemorrhaging money is a massive, massive improvement. It shows you really that give these guys a chance. They know what they're doing, even if they've had to take some really difficult decisions to get there. What we need to see now is that same ruthlessness that was displayed through staffing cuts and this kind of thing, and all of the stuff that made Carrington and Old Trafford absolutely miserable last year. Turn the page, but also trim the squad down with the same ruthlessness. We'll wait and see, because it is obviously going to be a lot more difficult in order to trim players off the squad list when they earn such massive wages. Haha, another wedding. Yes, yeah, literally another wedding. This one's in Greece, in Corfu, though. So, yes, of a good friend. So that'll be fun for a few days. Harris says, by releasing those 3 players, we end up saving close to £18 million a year. Is it that? Obviously, I tend to go for wages and financial packages in weeks rather than years. But I think that, you're pretty close there. It's crazy. So that's how heavy a commitment United have. Think of all the players that United were paying last season that were of no use to them, and think of how that's been for a while. Victor Lindelof has been that kind of player on 120k a week for a long, long time. That's just money that they're throwing away. Not to disrespect Victor Lindelof or whatever, but he hasn't been fit specifically for a long time, to the point where he's playing as a first-team regular every week. Yes, it is expensive as well. It's getting expensive here. But right, anyway, I'll just do a little bit more on Garnacho. I don't know how I feel about this, but Chelsea and Arsenal have been linked with Garnacho over the last few days. Let me know in the chat, what kind of price do you think Manchester United should be trying to get out of Garnacho? Do you think they're closer to getting 40 million, or do you think they can hold out for the 60 million? Do you think it depends where he goes, this kind of thing? And how do you feel about him moving to another Premier League club? It'd be a difficult one to swallow for me. I think I would much prefer he sold abroad, but ultimately, if you're going to pick between a 40 million fee from Napoli and a 60 million fee off Chelsea or something like that, then I think you probably take the extra money and just be done with it. If it's Arsenal, I want 100 million. Yeah, I know, right? It would be. I really think Garnacho is. I think the leaks and all of the noise on social media and these kinds of things are really not good, and I think it's a massive distraction for a lot of people. But I don't think you can doubt this guy's talent. People are looking at the numbers that he's putting up and thinking, yeah, they're okay, but they're not world. The guy is 20 years old. He's got a lot of maturing to do. He's got a lot of development to go through as well, and if he adds that extra bit of maturity to make the right decisions at the right times in his game, I think he'd be a really, really good player. Really, really good. It's a big shame that it hasn't worked out at United. And I'm not going to sit here and say that United aren't making the right decision. I think United are making the right decision in order to sell him here, because I don't think he fits the system. And I've said that ever since I saw Ruben Amorim's team and Manchester United, and ever since I saw it working at the start. in terms of the traits you need in those roles. I don't think Garnacho is the right fit. 50 million and a sell-on percentage is like from Grace there is a really, really good. You see these sell-on percentages over the last few days. Coming back round and United get a little bit of a wedge back after these players. You sell them for pittance. But, if these players go and hit really well at another club and they end up selling on for a lot more money, United do make, a fair bit of money back. And Jonathan there says, my biggest problem with Garnacho is decision-making on and off the pitch. Yes, I agree. But I think a more settled football club, but a more, where I think player power has been a big problem for United for a long time. And they have, Rob never agreed with me on that kind of thing. But I think player power and the way that these kinds of players get to this level of elevation, especially so early on in their careers, it can lead to some kind of inflation, of their standing and this kind of thing. And especially with Garnacho, I think he played like 50 or 60 matches in a row, under Erik ten Hag. And of course, like if you're coming through the youth academy and into the first team and you're playing that many matches in a row and then you get dropped out of it, you're gonna feel like, what have I done? Well, like you can understand why Garnacho's frustrated. I think he has some merit to what he's saying. Just shouldn't be saying it publicly, obviously. And I think that's the big problem. But the way that United are at the moment, the fact that United are in the position that they're in and they need money, they need to raise it in order to reinvest and get the right team together. Look, United will create plenty of great players through the academy over the next few years. I'm sure of it. Because they are actively looking to do that, and Ruben Amorim is telling you every couple of weeks that they are looking to do that. That's going to be a big focus. I'm sure there'll be more players, even if it is a shame that Garnacho will probably end up leaving. Well, will end up leaving. We don't know where he'll go yet. I would much prefer really that he goes to Serie A personally. If you can find 50 million for him from like Napoli or something like that, then that's perfect for me. But maybe there's a Saudi offer for him, or who knows whether he'd want to do that in his career at this point. It is, you've seen a lot of players turn down those Saudi Arabian moves over the last few days and weeks. It's certainly interesting. But Atletico Madrid are in there. I'm sure 2 or 3 Premier League clubs are in there. I don't think United will have a problem selling him. Napoli are meant to be in there as well. I think there's a place, I think you do really well in Italy. Bayer Leverkusen as well. Lots of clubs. And I think United really have, as much as like lots was made of how Amorim treated him in that team meeting and how that news came out afterwards that he said you'll be lucky if you go find yourself a new club, that kind of thing. It is, maybe that had like weakened United's hand, but I think there's enough interest in Garnacho and enough time left in the window for United to find the right deal to the right club for him. And to play these teams against each other. This at the end of the day, this is a really, really good, really talented young player who at 20 years old is doing fantastically well. Who will be a really good player by the time he's 25, 26. I'm sure of it. It was only a few years ago where people were talking about United selling Garnacho to Real Madrid at 25, 26. So, look, we'll wait and see. But it's a shame this come about that way. But it is what it is. And I think you just have to take that cut at the moment and just understand that's the position that United are in. Ben McManus says, for sure, player power is finally starting to shift now. I do think that as well. Like the fact that I think Rashford is the big proving point here. The fact that Rashford was kicked out, I think that was the line in the sand for me. Simon Martial says, updates of Gyokeres and Mbeumo. You can go back in the video. I did them at the start of the video if you would, if you'd like to see those. United, I want Gyokeres, Mbeumo, Simons, Emi Martinez, Edison to United is better for next season, please. We will, look, Emi Martinez, I'll do another show on him over the next few days. Xavi Simons, I think, is a no-go now that United are going for Cunha and Mbeumo, I would imagine. But there's certainly some of those other players you could see United ended up getting. Jonathan says, I'd love to ask Nick Cox what he thinks about these problems in developing academy players. He's done some really good interviews lately. So, maybe I'll try and dig him up. I don't know. Try and find out. But it is, there's plenty going on at United. Get your comments in. I'll be shooting off in a minute or two. But there's plenty going on. I don't know whether anything has happened here with United over the last 45 minutes or so. Would you like Dominic CalvertLewin to come in? He's being released by Everton. as a backup striker. How would you feel about that? Look, I'm just checking through now. I don't think there's anything else really to touch on, but I will. I'll be back throughout the week to any academy players you want next season. You want to see next season, or would you rather them all go out on loan? I think there's a good balance to strike, to be honest. With I think there's talk about Sekou Kone going out on loan. Shea Lacey, big hopes for him. Obviously, I don't know if he'd be ready yet, but we did see him on the postseason tour. Harry Amas has been on the fringes of the first team, but United are signing Diego Leon as well. And if anything, I don't know whether they're like super strong options at the moment to go and start with, but they do have a lot of options in that left wing back position to move with moving forward. And I see players like, look, Theo Hernandez is on the market for 30 million euros, and I'm thinking, God, man, he'd be a perfect fit, but it's simply, I don't think United need him at the moment. Jonathan says, I thought him, Abraham, or Jonathan David might be good as a backup. Look, I think that Jonathan David stuff is, I think he's shopping around. I think he'll end up at Napoli or something like that. But Andy Carroll, good stuff, guys. Look, I think, I do think maybe United will need potentially a second striker, not at massive expense, but it depends what happens with Xerxes. Like maybe Xerxes will be that second option, or an option who can do all three positions. I don't know. I certainly like what I saw out of Xerxes over the last 6 months or so, to the point where I think he can certainly do a job. But look, we'll wait and see. I'm going to shoot off now, I think, because I've got to go eat, this kind of thing. And Wales playing Belgium in an hour or so, so I've definitely got to check in on that match as well. But thanks for listening, thanks for watching, everyone. Please like the video if you've not done so already. Thanks for joining, thanks for getting your comments in. I really appreciate all the support. And Ben's watching Cymru as well. Yeah, if Wales can go beat Belgium, that would be fantastic, because Craig Bellamy's mighty army is unbeaten so far. Right, look, we'll see how it goes anyway. Right, I'll see you soon, everyone. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And until next time, I'll be back, maybe back on the channel once more live this week, maybe tomorrow. Depends on what happens. But from the rest of the week, then you can probably find me on Apple and Spotify in audio format, and on YouTube in pre-recorded video kind of thing. Specific topics. There's probably a keep sell coming. There's probably something on the goalkeepers as well. And look, I'll see you soon, everyone. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening again. Until next time, this has been the Promised Land Podcast with me, Scott. Cheers for joining. See you soon.